Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Jake Glenn-Davis.
I'm Martin Rizard, the other one, obviously.
And we work with Neil Scanlon at Pinewood Studios for the Creature department. We're both concept designers. Martin's also a sculptor and makeup artist.
There's a team of about 4 concept artists attached to the CFX department, and we've been brought together on the first film, and we've just continued on.
So yeah, we've done Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, just finished Solo. We're now starting on 9. So we've been working on 9 since September.
So the presentation about 9, of course.
Yeah, this is all 9. Here we go. Okay, do you want to just click through?
Oh, this is. I started on Star Wars quite a while back. I was at the time I was a sculptor in the costume props department. So I worked on those films. I sculpted. Costume props is like whatever is part of the costume that's not soft fabric. It has to be sculpted and molded and duplicated. So that's what I was involved with. Sculpted that one and the face helmet for this one, and I worked on that guy as well. And then I went on to. Then there was a big gap, and then when I was called again by Neil to work on the Star Wars. Next slide. So this is some of the stuff I have been involved with. I sculpted that guy top left, and I as Jake was saying, I start concepting, then I move on to sculpting, and then if there is a makeup effect that has to be applied and stuck on an actor like this, for example, I can also do that. So
Martin's far more all-round than I am. I just sit and draw, and other very skilled people then interpret them and make them real. So this is like Martin's body of work from the last 2 or 3 films, isn't it? And then
pretty much.
Just move on.
Yeah, next.
And then this is my body of work from. So I did BB-8, I did the Porgs. I got to do Ray Speeder, which was amazing because we don't normally do that. We just do creatures, but we are capable of doing other things. And I think the art department was struggling a bit, and they invited us to sort of join in. And I did this, and we'll come back to Ray Speeder later. A lot of this is actually is about Rogue One, and it's about Force Awakens. We didn't know how much we'd be able to talk about The Last Jedi, so the only concession to The Last Jedi is I've put a picture of the Porgs. And I suppose briefly on the Porgs, I'm really, really pleased with the Porgs, and they did quite well. There was always a worry, because I knew they had this sort of comedic element to them. You don't know how it's going to play out. But they were, I'm really pleased with them. And again, a theme that we will touch on again, one of the things that we have to consider is this sort of simplicity of design. And the Porg was a sort of when it came down to it, was a very simple design, and that's kind of one of the reasons it works. It is an egg shape or with 2 eyes, and that's kind of it. It's so simple, you can just draw it. A kid can draw it. And it's something we kind of have at the back of our minds, I suppose, consciously or subconsciously. A Star Wars design works when you can distill it down to these sort of simple shapes. So that's the stuff I've done. Could we move on? And again, more things that I've done. This is Pow, who you saw, Derek. I don't know if you were just in for the last panel, but Derek played Pow. And all the Hapabor, the Rathtars. Again, Martin's been involved in some of these as well with the sculpting. This is just purely, we're going to kind of go into a bit more depth on some of them now. So let's just kick off with BB-8. I'll just get him out of the way. BB-8 originated with that sketch up there. That's the initial drawing that JJ did on a post-it note, which is recognizable as BB-8, but he has got a little face. It was given over to a guy called Christian Altsman, who works at ILM, and that's, again, obviously BB-8. You can tell it's BB-8. It has the colors. It still has an anthropomorphic face, which is, when it came to me, I really wanted to sort of, well, JJ wasn't still sold on that look, but there was enough there he liked. He liked the orange, he liked the white, but he wanted to push it further. So I took it into, I was looking at R2-D2 basically, and making, there were certain patterns and elements in Star Wars that I wanted to sort of bring into the design. No offense to Christian, but I thought the bottom ball was quite busy. So this all sort of was, I don't know, we worked hand in hand. A lot of the design comes out of working with Matt, who was the electronics guy, and Josh, who actually built BB-8, and Brian, who was the puppeteer. And as the puppet prototypes were built, you could see, actually, what it really helps is to have that pattern, this sort of, the 6 panels actually aided the sort of, the sense that it was moving free roaming, even when it wasn't. It's attached to an axle and it's being pushed by Brian. You want it to look like it could go anywhere. And actually those panels really help sell that, I think. So a lot of it comes, it's not just me going, oh, that looks pretty. It has a sort of function as well. There's some, again, a lot of different panel designs, a lot of eye ideas. Some of them are, you see this one in the middle at the bottom is a bit like R2-D2. We went away from that. And we went through, dozens and dozens of looks. And Martin, you were involved in BB-8 as well?
I did a pass in the digital modeling software called ZBrush, just to kind of clean up in a way, just bring it closer to a finished look. And then that was passed on to a 3D company who kind of prototyped the bits that were printed, and then they got printed, they got molded, and then they got duplicated and painted, and the nightmare started.
And the only other thing you may want to know about BB-8, BB-8 has got these tiny little, I don't know what you call them, but on his white panels, they actually did have a purpose, those little dots. They were meant to be spikes that telescoped out, because it was this idea, there was one idea that BB-8 might get picked up, and in a sort of, to fend off the attacker, spikes would go, pew, and he would, and then it was like, maybe they could be traction. So the idea was that it would, if you needed to cross some smooth, or I don't know, some terrain which was kind of hard work, they'd come out and gain traction, but they'd need to telescope back in to go under his head. He couldn't just be permanently out. It didn't happen, but that's why they're there. We'll move on. This is a sort of more of a collaboration between Martin and I. This is the Abedino race. There's Alo Asti, who is the pilot in Force Awakens. And this was a thing where I thought, I really want to, I kind of forced this on JJ. I just drew this character in different costumes and different looks until he bought the idea. Just relentless. I thought, I want to have an X-Wing pilot that's an alien. They're all human. Why don't we see some aliens out there being part of the resistance? So I drew him as a scavenger on Jakku. There he is at the top behind Rey. I drew him as an X-Wing pilot. He became Alo Asti and subsequently Kythra and Ali in The Last Jedi. But I have to hand it to Martin, because Martin basically took one of the sketches, which is the big hauler guy with the yellow robot arms. And my sketches are really loose, and that was the sketch that Martin worked with, and he turned it into something far, far better.
I only tried, but it was just the sketch was there, the character was all there. So I did on the top right corner. It's a little maquette, it's just a study. It's a little plastilene thing, just to get the character, and underneath is the actual sculpt. And one of the things we did a lot, Neil decided to, because very often the creatures we make, they're only fleetingly there. You might see them for a second or two. So we decided not to rely solely on the animatronics, and that would bring the expression to the character, but we would we would sculpt them with an expression so that it's already there. And the mechanics installed inside the head would just help that expression. But a lot of the characters we sculpted were not neutral. We try and bring in as much personality and expression as we could in the character. So even if you don't have time to see it move, you get an idea of how unhappy he is just by looking at him. So
he's not having a good time. He's very grumpy. But again, very pleased with. I mean, you did a spectacular job, and Julian as well, who did. Julian Murray sculpted Aloasti, and he sort of obviously Martin set the template going with the Hauler guy who may have a name. I don't know. Probably somewhere. If we looked in the book, he'd have a name. But yeah, and then Julian then took it on, and it became Aloasti, and then Catherine Ali. It crops up all over the place in The Last Jedi, so it's great.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Move on.
Moving on. Oh, this is some of the work I was given the task to look after. Neil, as soon as it was revealed that Akbar would be back on Force Awakens, I was given the task to resculpt that head based on as much information as I could from the images and photos, and sort of try and find it and just clean it up a little bit along the way. So the one on the right is the one on the left of the picture is Akbar on the Force Awakens, and then on Rogue One they came back again. So I took that sculpt and cleaned it up a bit more. So the one on the sculpt on the right is actually from Rogue One, and it was the base for the white sort of calamaris, which are in the next picture, I suppose. Yeah. So, and we have those. We call them Milky Bars because they're white.
Well, it started off with Black Bar because that rhymed with Akbar.
Yeah.
Everything has a code name because we don't know what their names are.
Yeah, we only know their real name when we see the film.
Yeah.
During the whole production process, they're called some. So
We have code names.
Yeah.
We have the names are endless because you have a everything's assigned a sort of really basic, like a letter and a number, and then people can never be bothered to remember those, so they give them a nickname just so that everyone knows what you're talking about. Yeah. And Radus was Black Bar.
Yeah, which is quite fitting.
And then the white one was Milky Bar.
Yeah.
Which
So the one on the left is kind of an early design for Radus, and then I took it to sculpt and. Gareth, the director, he had a really quite precise idea of what he wanted that character to look like, and I didn't get it at first. It was still a lot like the original Akbar, and then he came in and went, "No, more. He's really grumpy." So and he took some clay and put it on, and I stepped back, going, "Did I just lose my job?" But then I cleaned it up and ran with it, and refined it, and that's what it looks like now. So it's. In effect, it's kind of collaborative design between Gareth and myself, I suppose.
Mainly Gareth.
Yeah, okay, maybe Gareth. And Radus was performed by Paul, who was sitting on this couch not so long ago. Very well performed. And the next?
So there's Ray Speeder, which was not a creature, so sorry. As I say, we collaborated with the art department. We were asked by Darren, who is the production designer or co-production designer on Force Awakens. JJ just wasn't, for whatever reason, buying into the designs that they were producing. And we were asked, hey, do you want to have a go as well? So, we did. And what I took, this is the influences. I really wanted a look, I loved the Landspeeder. Again, it's a simple design. If you look at the Rey Speeder, it's a little bit like taking Luke's Landspeeder and sort of just turning it on its side. That wasn't wholly what I was thinking, but I love that simple shape. And I also love these sort of, tractors and these industrial machines. Again, they're just a really simple shape. You take the wheels off, it's Rey Speeder. It's kind of like that. Brought in a little bit of the 30s racing cars. And that's kind of it, really. It did change a bit. I mean, that's the design. The one at the top, the red one, that's the design that JJ picked on. And then we went through hundreds of reiterations of, did it have the fins? Did it not have the fins? Did it have a little windscreen or not? It didn't there, but it gained one. The saddle was, because she sort of sits on a saddle, I don't know if you've seen that. That was actually, the art department added that. I can't lay claim to that. And the only other little detail I can tell you is I love the space shuttle. I remember when the space shuttle was launched. I'm that old. And it has a special, really special meaning. I don't know, I love it. It's quite sad when the space shuttle was retired. But anyway, the exhaust ports, or what are the thruster ports on that space shuttle are kind of there, and that's why they're there. It's because I love those, and I find the design quite interesting. So there's all the little facts about this raised speed that I can think of. Should we move on? Back to Martin.
This is a character that appears very fleetingly in Rogue One.
It is yes.
Yeah, it is Rogue One, in the back corner somewhere, and it's just to demonstrate how sometimes you can spend months developing a concept and changing it and adapting it and sculpting it and molding it. And at one stage, there was a scene in the prison with Bo Gullet, and he was in a cell and he was talking, and it looked amazing when we filmed that. It was like, wow, it's like looks like Star Wars. It's proper.
Did Bo Gullet kind of mind meld him?
No, not directly. No, they didn't interact, but they were in the same sort of environment. Right. And then for story reasons, that scene had to be cut and put aside, and he was put into another scene, and it was just appearing in the.
You
back.
saw him in that. Rebel,
yeah, as they walk into Saw Gerrera's club. But the final design is mainly due to the amazing morphology of the performer, which you can see here wearing nothing, and that's not a changed image, that's how he looks. So you put any rubber on that guy, he looks awesome anyway. So we're very careful at how we select our performers, and we'll come back to that, but the physicality and the talent of the performer is taken into account at the design phase, just to bring it something else altogether. And yep, that's another guy.
He's called the Praetor, I think.
Yeah, Prastor
Mon or something.
Yep.
Does anyone know what he's called?
He appears in Maz Castle. So sometimes the move from the design to the final character is quite close. Sometimes it evolves a lot, but the image in the middle is the original design. And when I came to sculpting it, we just kind of made little adjustments and kind of try and bring a bit more personality into the sculpt. And then it goes to Jake did a run on it to define the costume, which is there, and we're trying to kind of lose the human shape a little bit. So the performer is inside there, but his arms are not the arms. The arms of the character are not his arms. They're just locked in that position.
Where is his arms?
Yeah, he's inside. He was controlling the head movement with his hands, with a little handle. That one of the mechanisms.
Again, we knew that this character is just a background character. He's not going to have to run around. He's not going to have to pick anything up. He's just got to stand there talking. So we could afford to just lock his arms are locked together. We know he's not going to do any more than that. It means we can give him weirdly long arms.
Yeah, and you can see in that picture on set, we're kind of flipping the skin over to give the performer a little bit of air, a little bit of breathing space. If there is not a lot of time between takes, we just flip the back of the head like that. If we've got a bit more time, then we can take the head off, but that's just kind of a heavy operation. They've
got those air guns, haven't they?
Yeah, we've got like leaf blowers.
Which they stick up
masks. Like hair dryers and stuff. All sorts of things to...
it's a very claustrophobic job. I think a lot of people freak out.
Most of the time you're inside one of those suits, you can't see anything, you can't hear anything. So very often the performers have like an earpiece, and there is someone like Paul who's choreographing them, telling them, if you don't stop now, you're going to run into someone, or you should turn left now, or the camera's on you, act. So they're just trying to make sure that, because they can't see anything. And then beyond the films,
we put the little Lego in. I don't know, we were
Yay.
just getting some images together, and I think it never ceases to amaze us.
Yeah. They take on a life of their own.
They do, you know. Somebody else has then made a little Lego version, and the design just goes beyond. You know, it's evolved from that to that to that. You know, and it's still brilliant. I love it.
Shall we move on?
Yeah. Again, so we're going to get into this sort of run of how we like to try and hide performers. You know, it's one thing to sort of build a costume and put a rubber head on. I say that very simply, but you've still got a human shape, and we're always trying to find how can we lose the human. And this was just JJ loved this from the outset, really, and it didn't. I only did one drawing. Normally, quite often, particularly with major designs like BB-8 or something, you go through stacks and stacks of drawings. But background characters, JJ's just like, yeah, that's great. You know, you don't need to sort of expound on it any more than this. So I did that drawing, and this was just influenced by something I'd seen at like music festivals where people or Halloween costumes. There's a guy in a gorilla, the gorilla carrying the man, and the man's in the cage with his little legs. That's what was the influence. And I thought, okay, how can I rejig that for Star Wars? So, and Aidan Cook played this, who is a very talented performer, and I forced him into many different. It's a kind of running joke that I will try and create the most tortuous costume to wear, and I threaten him with ideas that I've had, and he very gamely. He's always got a smile on his face, but that was performed in Abu Dhabi in goodness knows how 40-degree heat. I don't know how he did it, and his head is he can't get out. He can't even touch his face. His hands are locked down here, operating the neck and the head. And yeah, the only other thing I could tell you about this, the head. So he's looking out the mouth of a creature, and that creature is, I can't remember the name, but the opening of Return of the Jedi, there is a little creature.
Yeah, next to Jabba's palace.
Next to Jabba's palace, and
it's like his
what's it called? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's his cousin there.
It's one of them. He's caught one, and he's probably going to sell it in the market. And you can't see it in that photo, but that's what it was.
Next.
Again, Derek played Vobadand. And again, this is another thing I'm trying to think, right, okay, how can we just even subtly push the human form? And the idea was, as you can see, that picture over there, which is the performer looks down, and then the face of the character is here, looking that way. So he's acting like this. He has to look at the floor. And again, it just lowers, you know, his shoulders and head become much lower, and it just slightly changes the shape. And he's looking through hair. He's got his big beard, really. So, and we reappropriated him. He became a senator that died on the, can't remember which planet it was.
Coruscant?
Coruscant or Corellia? No, Coruscant.
Was somewhere in space.
Yeah.
Died.
You saw him looking at the impending doom, didn't you? Yeah, we just move on. There's a bit more on him if we skip on.
Next one. Yeah.
And this is some of the, again, you can see this is Maria, who was just standing. Maria does all the hair. She's in charge of doing all the hair, all the feathers on the porgs. Chewie's hair is her team that does it. But we made her stand in and just help out with this. And this is just a mock-up. So this is a very early sculpt, a very quick foam that's been made, put it on a head just to see how it works, and they can start piecing together how it attaches to the costume, and it's just a sort of guide, and they'll produce the better one later, but this is sort of work in progress. Have you got any more? I can't think of anything else on that one. But
no, it's just it's as Jake was saying, it's building creatures is not like we know exactly how to do it. We kind of have an idea, but it's a lot of problem solving. That's the main thing. We kind of know our tools. We know which ways we can go, but you have a design, then you have the reality of a performer wearing it. So there's lots of steps along the way where we put things together, as close as possible to the design, but then we have to make a compromise to allow for breathing, seeing, or those things, those life-threatening
Yes.
things. So the process is very long into fitting very rough shapes, just balancing things, trying to work out how it works, and there's an army of people doing that in the workshop, and we all rely on each other, and it's only by working together closely that we can manage to have a final product that's really close to the design and also wearable. It has to be, you have to be able to get in quickly, get out quickly. It has to be not too heavy. Like the guy with the cages, all those cages had to be made in aluminium, as light as possible, but durable as well. So the implications of building those things are immense. We've got the easy job of just drawing them and sculpting them. And the next. And to lose as much as we can of the human body, sometimes we employ amputees.
Yeah. So this,
Yeah.
well, I'm shouting. The guy on him up here, there's a guy called Derek Campbell. He was in, used him in Rogue One, and he played a robot which never made it into the film. But he, I think he had meningitis or something. He lost 3 or 4 years ago. He had to have his legs amputated, just below the knee. But this guy he's turned it around. He's like a personal speaker, does motivational things. He does acting as well, modelling. And on Rogue One, we'd given him this robot with enormously long legs, so he stood about 8 feet tall, and I loved that. I thought, brilliant, I'm going to use him again. And what I liked about the fact with this guy, who I don't think you ended up seeing him in The Last Jedi, but he made it into this Vanity Fair photo shoot. What I really wanted to do is, you could never do this with a guy with his whole legs, because his feet would I've given him these immensely thin shins, and it's just impossible to do. And Derek was perfect for it. So we had custom made these prosthetic legs with kind of carbon fiber extensions, and he's walking around on extended prosthetic limbs that put him at 8 foot tall.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
It's really good. I'm going to try and do it again.
And we
Till it gets in the film.
It's a very good trick. And those performers, they're really willing, because they either had accidents or sickness or were injured in the army, and they conquer all of that, and they come out of it stronger most of the time. And for them to participate in projects like the ones we work on, it's a new challenge, and they just take it and run with it. They really love it. Scott, who's was the other character, he lost a leg in a motorcycle accident, I think, and I sculpted that head for him, and he loved it. And that was on The Force Awakens, and it was when what's his name, Han Solo. Harrison Ford had his leg accident, and we were on set with Scott, and Harrison came along, and Scott was sitting. He didn't have his animatronic head on, and he said, I heard you had a problem with your leg. Did you do that just to enter the competition? And Harrison Ford looked at him and went, "You win." It's quite sweet. And the next. That's another character I designed and sculpted on Force Awakens, and he comes back in The Last Jedi as well. He's in the
You
the
can see him
rebel
in the
ship.
background of the Resistance. Yeah.
So performed by Ian White, who's a very, very tall performer. He's 7 foot something. He doubles for Chewie as well every now and again.
He's in Game of Thrones. He plays
the giant.
The giant in Game
But
of
that's
Thrones.
not his real size in Game of Thrones. He's not as big as the giant in Game of Thrones. They just amplified him. So you can see the process here. We're just trying. We've got a rough. This is the design over there to the. No, there's no design. This is the sculpt, and then it gets molded, cast in foam latex, and then we try and put it together, see how it works. And so there's like a aluminium sort of frame that attaches to a backpack, and that can be released quickly so that we can take the head off. And so at this stage, we're just looking at it, going, "Why do we do that?" And the only way, the vision was very limited in this. You can, the performer can see if the mouse is open, but his vision is very limited. So between takes, the puppeteer who's operating the face kind of leaves the mouth open so that there can be a bit more air and a bit more vision. But then when the performance is happening, they're blind. So that's when they rely on the radio controls, the radio controls. And the next, that's Paul.
POW, again, Derek was POW. And this is just another example of creating sort of crazy things that, you know, I thought, all right, let's do something where he looks through the mouth. And I mean, I was just going to backtrack slightly. It starts off, POW actually started off with this character over here, which I drew for something else. And there was a tribesman which never made it. But Gareth saw this. He said, oh, I love it. I love the big open mouth and the scary look. But not like that. You know, it's got to be more, not a tribesman. So I just reinterpreted lots of these sort of shapes. You know, the hair became this hat, and put him in some rebellish clothing. But he's done. But then I thought, well, this is great. We can get him to look through the mouth, and it was amazing sort of sculpt. They sculpted the entire interior of his mouth, and Derek looks out sort of through the, I don't even know how to demonstrate this, through the roof of the mouth. Yeah, I mean, Derek's wearing a sort of mask that looks like that wiggly bit that hangs at the bottom. So he's kind of looking beyond the wiggly bit behind like that. So the POW can open his mouth and go, ah, and you can look right down into his mouth, and you think, how do they do that? I don't know. It was good. Okay, all right, let's move on quick. We've got too much to get to. Again, this is just about influences, really. We did the Rathtar. What I brought to the Rathtar was, again, it's a simple shape. We'd drawn loads and loads of monsters that all look really crazy and angry and scary, but JJ's like, they're just like I've seen them before. So I went back and I threw them all away, and I just played with simple shapes. The one he picked up on is a ball with legs and a big open mouth, and that's kind of it. And it was just drawn from, I was looking at this, I think this is a flu virus. And this is a big Photoshop thing I did, and I just combined that picture of a dog toy, I like that, with some legs and a mouth off a lamprey. Again, you're just constantly looking around you at all different sources. You're looking at nature, you're looking at just shapes around you, and you can combine them. Constantly, the influences are just not necessarily other creatures. It's weirdest things out there. I've done stuff based off broccoli and lumps of stone.
Anything works. Anything works. And I did a maquette, and then that was taken over to ILM for scanning, because we didn't build this one. It was just a digital.
It was digital. Yeah. Moving on. Okay, we're just going to end this on the caretakers. Again, this is, again, a combination of Martin. This is, again, working together on something. I think you were still working on Rogue One when I started the caretakers. So, what director are we talking about now? Ryan.
Ryan. Yeah.
It does get confusing as to who's doing what. Ryan had wanted puffin people. That's the brief. Puffin people. And so a lot of these are just generated, I think, puffins, the colours of puffins, the shapes, the beaks. The beaks become this the profile of the puffin is in this. There are aquatic animals. The colours went away in the end for technical reasons. I think they just wanted this blue colour.
Yep.
And
that's when I get in. Neil asked me to supervise the sculpting side of those characters, so I did some maquettes, and then we started sculpting the real heads. We did like a very simplified version, because we did about 12 or 15 sculpts, something like that. So we had this kind of, we simplified the shape so that the language of how those articulate could carry through the various sculpts.
And it's like a blueprint. You can say, right, there's always going to sort of peek out the top of the head there. The eyes the eyes were moved around constantly, didn't they? But you sort of, like with a human face, our eyes and noses are all over the place, but they sort of stay within a certain region. So we sort of mapped it out with that little poly sort of and we had a lovely little sculpt of that, which
Yeah,
was
but I've
been lost.
But we ended up sculpting about 8 male and 8 female or something
Yeah.
like that, and just duplicated them and painted them differently. And there was a team of 3 sculptors, including myself, doing those for a very long time. It was a lovely project.
And again, it was a case of Martin, me drawing them, and Martin and your team had taken it to this next level. I can draw to a certain point and create these nice silhouettes and characters, but then the sort of biological look of them and the anatomy that comes from all your guys' skill.
Yeah.
We couldn't really. Sorry about the poor quality on these photos. It's all I could get at the last minute, but the end result basically was these.
There was at one stage there was a band of musicians.
Yeah.
They're not in the final cut of the film, but they might be in the Blu-ray extras or something like that. And there was this guy on the left who was kind of blowing a trumpet. So he had this big. It's the best sculpt I did on the whole film.
Again, it's like what you were saying with we didn't bother making an animatronic. We didn't need that, did it?
It was there.
It's a one-shot thing. That's a no-shot thing now, but it was a one-shot thing, and it was just right mid. That's it. That's all you need to sculpt, really.
Really. And we're here representing those people.
This is the guys we work with. There's probably up to about 120 people, maybe, just making the things, not even including performers.
So we have administration, we have design and sculpture. Then there's the mechanical department. There's the fabrication department. There's the hair department.
The molding department.
The molding department.
The foam department.
Foam department. Silicon department. Painting department. And we all love each other, and it's a great fun. So
And there's Neil in the middle.
Yeah.
With the grey hair.
With the grey hair. That's the boss.
Oh, Martin, Jake.
That's it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but thanks for this presentation. It's
No.
fantastic to see all this artwork and the stories behind it. We have a few more minutes for questions, so
Go for it.
if there's someone who wants to ask a specific question. Yeah, so what's your training, your education?
People ask me a lot. It's a combination. Obviously, I'm not going to knock. There's skill. I draw, and I've drawn for all my life, and I wanted to do this when I was a kid, and I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job as a runner on a TV show, and it's about who you meet. I don't think I would necessarily have got this job based on skill alone, because there's lots and lots of skilled artists out there. It's as you work, you meet people, and it's networking. It's not like a clubby thing. It's just the way it goes. No one advertises these jobs particularly.
No, I mean, the mechanical department, most of them are engineers. They have trained in engineering. The hair department, there are formations now. They're like, you can learn prosthetic special effects. And by doing that, you meet people, and very often tutors come in and they can see the young talent. And once again, it's all about connectivity. So that there is a real advantage at following one of those courses. I know in London there's varied through fashion school or costume schools, all these kind of things. There's various ways in. The fabricators, there's a lot of fabricators in our team. They studied costume and they find themselves there. So there's various way in. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, everyone.
I think
Thank
we're
you.
very conscious of. We know what we're doing. It's an amazing job, and we're so aware that it matters. And it's like you think I'm always hoping we're doing it right.
Have you ever done it wrong? It's like, people tell you like, no.
4 days out of 5.
Yeah, 4 out of 5?
And sometimes we do things just off. You don't always play it safe. Sometimes I'll draw something. I think let's just test the waters here, just to see if somebody likes it. And yeah.
Wow. The last question, maybe? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, use the mic if you want. Yeah.
What was your favorite creature to create, and what are porgs based on? Like creatures or...
Well, I'll answer that last one first. Porgs are... I drew loads of things for porgs, but one of the things that I was playing with was they are based on pug dogs. They have that... Pug dogs have got that such sort of grumpy little face, combined with seals, you know, the big eyes of a seal. Because they were meant to be... They weren't originally feathered when I drew them. They were going to be more seal-skinned, and they were going to be like penguins and just be less flightless and more water, you know, swimming through water, catching fish. So they're pug dogs. They are puffins as well, because puffins are part of the brief. Puffins are across the island, and pugs.
Pugs.
And my favourite creature, I don't know. I've done quite a lot of them now. I mean, the porgs I'm very pleased with. That's an easy answer because we've just been talking about.
I think
I don't know.
for me it was probably Radus in Rogue One, because it was a great combination of things. It looked okay, which is lucky. It doesn't work every time. You know, we try a lot of things and sometimes it works. And the performance was superb. The animatronic was amazing, and you see him in the film.
Yeah.
So. That's good. I like that.
All right, so Porg and Admiral Radis.
Yep.
All right, I have dozens more questions. I'm sure there are in the audience, but I have to stop it right here. Can I get a big round of applause for Jake and Martin? Thank you so much. I believe you're signing. You have a signing session at that exit. I think it's €10, and the money goes to UNICEF. Through Force for Change. So
And if you've got any more questions, come and see us.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Great. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.